What you will see in this advert is a symbolic representation of the future that awaits South Africa if people do not vote in the correct manner in the upcoming election. It's a warning of what the country's future will look like under a doomsday coalition between the ANC, the EFF, and perhaps also the MK and various other smaller parties like the Patriotic Alliance. Before we air the piece, I wanted to take you back, however, to April last year to the DA's Federal Congress. And at this event, I became one of the first leaders to warn South Africa about the potential ANC-EFF doomsday coalition that could well arise after the 2024 election. And I want to just read for you a bit of the speech that I made on that day in April last year, what I said at the time, and I quote, "The Doomsday Coalition will expropriate property without compensation and abolish private property rights. The Doomsday Coalition will nationalize and destroy foreign investment, businesses, banks, and mines. The Doomsday Coalition will plunge this country into an ethnic and racial conflict, the likes of which it has never witnessed before. The cold, hard truth is that the Doomsday Coalition between the ANC and the EFF has already taken over Johannesburg and Ekurhuleni with the help of its small proxy parties. And next year, it will be knocking on the doors of the union buildings. And this is a fact that should send shivers down the spine of every patriot and freedom-loving person in this country," unquote. Since the DA became the first party to warn about the imminent danger posed by an ANC-EFF coalition, not only to our economy but to our very democracy, a series of events have only heightened this risk. Since I first outlined it 13 months ago, the working relationship between the ANC and the EFF has deepened in places like Ekurhuleni, Johannesburg, and Nelson Mandela Bay. In every single place where the Doomsday Coalition already governs in South Africa, the consequences have been, frankly, catastrophic. Basic service delivery has collapsed, looting runs rampant, taps run dry, electricity doesn't ever come on after load shedding ends, and life gets harder for everyone. And despite this overwhelming evidence, there are still some amongst the analysts who've tried to dismiss these warnings as what they call scaremongering. But the message I want to say this evening is that scaremongering is only scaremongering when it's untrue. In South Africa today, it is a cold, hard fact that the ANC and EFF already co-govern with each other in some of the most important cities in our country. And as the national and provincial elections have approached, there's been an even rapid further toenadering that we've seen happening between the ANC and the EFF. We've seen it here in Gauteng, where the ANC's Panyaza Lesufi is clearly busy setting the table to go into a coalition with the EFF at a provincial level. This will mean that the industrial heartland of South Africa will be under the control of the radical populists who will destroy what's left of Gauteng's economy. We now also have the leader of the EFF, Julius Malema, on the record that the EFF will give its vote to the ANC on the conditions that property is expropriated without compensation, that mines are nationalized, and that Floyd Shivambu, the very person implicated in the looting of the VBS Bank, becomes the finance minister of the Republic. Just this past week, we had the president of COSATU, Zingiswa Losi, a key ANC alliance partner, openly saying that they want, and I quote, "a leftist coalition," unquote, with the economic freedom fighters. We've also now seen other markets as well as the Rand have reacted and are being affected by the fears of a doomsday coalition. This is a clear signal that allowing the ANC and the EFF to take over will result in capital flight and the outright collapse of the South African economy, plunging this country into an economic hardship, the likes of only which we've witnessed in countries like Venezuela and Zimbabwe. Earlier today, when we read the newspapers, we were shocked to learn that Shell is set to withdraw its operations from South Africa. And that comes just days after learning that Anglo-American may similarly divest from South Africa. These are clear and present warning signs that investor confidence is already plummeting because of the prospect of an ANC-EFF government, which will lead to a jobs bloodbath and will plunge many, many more people into poverty in South Africa. This is a time to remind ourselves of Maya Angelou's famous saying that when somebody shows you they are the first time, believe them. In this case, we should now say that senior leaders in the ANC and EFF have shown us who they are, and that their plan is to form a doomsday coalition, and we should believe them. Those analysts who dismiss an interrogation of these facts as mere scaremongering are engaged, frankly, in irresponsible commentary based on woefully inadequate and potentially willfully naive determination to turn a blind eye to the very real prospect of what is happening before us. But we're not going to turn a blind eye as the DA to this existential crisis that faces our country and our economy, because the future is very, very clear to see, and the facts are right before our eyes. And we believe it's our patriotic duty and our duty as the official opposition in the country to inform the electorate that the future of every South African family is in danger from the impending takeover by the ANC-EFF Doomsday Coalition. Those of you who know me and have been covering me for years know that I don't believe in beating around the bush, and I've always been a straight shooter. Some don't like it, but there it is. So here is the straight up truth. Provincial and national coalition governments between the ANC and the EFF and their fellow radical populists will set South Africa on fire. The same straight shooting message is what you're about to see in our latest advertisement. And you will see that if voters sit back and allow the ANC and the EFF to take over South Africa, our country will literally be burnt to ashes. To be absolutely clear, so there can be no misunderstanding, the visuals you're about to see do not represent what the DA wants for South Africa, nor what we want to see happening in South Africa. They represent the fear of what will happen if voters do not go out in large numbers on the 29th of May and stop the Doomsday Coalition dead in its tracks. Unsettling as it is to watch the video and confront the reality of our South Africa's dream will burn if we allow the ANC and EFF Doomsday Coalition, it also ends on a hopeful note by showing that not all is lost. The video tells voters that it's not yet too late to prevent the doomsday from happening and to keep the South African dream alive.
So what do you guys think? Is it possible for Julius Malema to be the next president of South Africa? His speeches actually have been suggesting that, and I think he's going to shoot for that. And he's been criticizing the present president, President Cyril Ramaphosa, a lot, especially on the issue of the Pala Pala Farm Gates scandal, and that President Ramaphosa has been hiding a lot of dollars, in sofas and all that in the presidential cabinet. And so, so Julius Malema might end up pushing to become the next president of South Africa. And if Malema becomes the president, I think South Africa might enter into an era of white and black clashes. I don't know how he's going to manage that transition, because he himself seems to be an embodiment of anti-white dominance and hegemony in South Africa. And so I think his presidency might result in these kinds of narratives against white hegemony and white monopoly capital in South Africa, and that blacks should be empowered and all that. And I don't know how that plays for South Africa. I don't know how that would lead to relationship between South Africa and many other Western nations. But I think that this is what the Julius Malema presidency would look like. And we should be watching because it's going to be, I believe, the next elections in South Africa would be really challenging ones. But what do you guys think about this speech? Share your thoughts in the comments.
Thank you for watching, guys. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Please share and like and subscribe, because that's the way you support Kwazemi as a channel, an Afrocentric channel, where we try to understand deeper issues in African history and hopefully develop a collective intelligence on how we wish to build the Africa we want to see as people of Africa. See you in the next one.